Good morning, everyone, and thank you so much for your patience. We have wonderful new equipment at Region 10, and we're really excited about it, but we are learning a little bit as we go. So again, thank you for your patience. You are a learning community that will provide us with information regarding the Migrant Education Program. I want to welcome all of you. I'm going to take brief attendance from the individuals that I have here. We will be able to get a list of the participants. If your name is not here, you may want to provide us with that information via chat, or you can turn on your mic, and in that manner we will add your name to what we have here. But like I said, we will have a list of individuals that have participated in this particular session when all is said and done. So let's start out with Christina Hope Angel. She's from Leadership Preparatory School. Christina, are you here? Then I have Charlene Belton Gonzalez from Crandall ISD. And Jai Brisbane, Amber Bowie.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, thank you, Amber. Leanne Bush.
Yes, I'm here.
Great. Jasmine Davila.
Here.
Jessica Gallo.
Here.
Manuel Gonzalez. Lisa Knight. Vanessa Montez. Lisa Morrison. Bernice Ortega. Taylor Oster. Martha Rojas.
Taylor says she's here.
Great.
Hope says she's here.
Who?
Hope. Okay.
Lina Ryan. Dennis Vasquez.
Morning.
He's here.
Alejandra Witherspoon.
Here. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Anyone else whose name I've not called, would you send it to the chat, and that way I can add it to my list. I think I saw Anita Connolly's name on the list. So Anita, good morning. And if you would send your name to the chat, then we would again add it to our list here. We have a good group here of individuals that are new to the program, and a little sprinkling of those of you that have had a little bit more experience with the program. My name is Miriam Kelly, and I work with the Migrant Education Program. I usually work with IDNR and NGS and other administrative duties as they come about. And we also have the pleasure of working with Diana Sanchez, and she's our consultant in the migrant world, and we'll be working with you individually as we proceed with the program throughout the school year. So we're really excited about all the new things that are coming along in the migrant world. It's always challenging when we have new items, new information, but remember, we're going to work all of this together, so it shouldn't be a problem. It should only be a challenge to kind of get it all together, because the bottom line is the success of our children. So welcome to the session.
Amen.
And like I said, we are working through all the different kinks and learning the process ourselves. So if there's something that we have not done or that you need to have further information, then please feel free to send us that information via chat, or just simply turn on your mic and let's talk about it. Any questions so far? Okay. The goal of this session, and we've kind of changed this around a little bit from what we've done in the past. We're going to provide you with some very practical information, hopefully that will help us understand the recruiting, the identification, and how to serve migrant families and migrant students. In this manner, it should be a really good review for those of you that have been with the program for a couple of years, though I don't see a couple of years here, which is fine. And then for those of you that are new, it should really provide, well, it should provide all of us with a wonderful foundation for what is and what are we dealing with when we talk about the Migrant Education Program. So again, it's to provide practical information. And as we get feedback from y'all, if there's something that we need to add to this particular presentation or kind of change it in order to add more clarity to it, we are open to suggestions. We'd also really want to make this session as interactive as possible. I know that you're in a very comfortable place, either in your office or here with us, or somewhere where you feel safe, and that's really good. But remember that you can click the mic on to ask us questions, and or you can interact with us via the chat. So we would really encourage you to be part of this morning so that we can all grow a little bit and get better at what we're doing. Yesterday evening, and it was late, so we apologize.
I'm still trying to get the thing to hate technology. Not fun. What?
We will be talking about this today, and again, we will be referring back to it when we are going to be together next week. And the first thing that we need to talk about is, who is a migrant? That word means a lot of things to different people, but in our world, who is a migrant? Anybody want to venture before you actually look at the slide? It's okay. Anybody want to turn on their mic and volunteer to read the information? Don't be shy. Okay. A migratory child means a child or a youth, and we say youth because we go from 3 years old all the way up to 22. So it really encompasses a large group of children. Who is a migratory agricultural worker? They could be a worker, migratory fisher themselves, or they could be children that go with their parents to the work site. So who in the preceding 36 months, in order to accompany or to join a parent or a spouse or guardian who is a migratory agricultural worker or a migratory fisher. And here, the key point here that is new this year, really started being new at the end of last year, has moved due to economic necessity from one residence to another. So if you have a highlighter or if you have anything that will help you remember that, you can underline that, has moved due to economic necessity from one residence to another. So now as our recruiters go out and work with the families, we have to establish, and you have also seen that the certificate of eligibility that many of you have received as a result of the identification of a family has information that has us identifying economic necessity and what prompted that family to move from one residence to another. Has moved from one school district to another. So they have to have moved within the preceding 36 months. They've either have accompanied a parent, or they've joined a parent, or they've joined a guardian. They should have moved for economic necessity. And 3, they've moved from one school district to another. So they have to cross school district lines. In a state that is comprised of a single school district, which is not Texas, has moved from one administrative area to another within such a district, or in the case of a school district of more than 15,000 square miles, migrates a distance of 20 miles or more. So those 2 exceptions really don't apply to the state, to our state. But it's just something that we should kind of have in the back of our head to understand that there are different definitions or different information that is put out throughout the United States regarding what does it mean to move from one district to another. Because not everyone looks like our state. We have some pieces there that, just happen to be there, and information would, is good to have. We have self-eligible use, and they travel mainly. The main thing to remember here is that these youths they do the work. They're qualifying workers. They're under the age of 22. They have not finished their high school experience. They travel with them alone, or they travel with a group. But the key here is that they're under the control of the parent. When they finish all their work, they return back to home to their parent, and hopefully they will also return back to school. So they're not solely responsible for their entire welfare. They're connected to a parent. And if we would read a little further, which is not on your slide, but just to give you a comparison, we have what is also called an emancipated youth. The emancipated youth has all the different, has all the same characteristics that the self-eligible youth has, but they're no longer under the control of their parent. And they may live at home, but really they are more independent, and they come and go as they please. And many of them do not live with their parents. So we have 2 types of youth besides just a regular child that is moving with the parent, joining the parent, or the guardian. So we should have now at least a good working definition of who is a migrant, and you'll have the information in the slide so that you can refer back to that whenever you have the need to do that. So hopefully that's the foundation, that's the piece that will allow you to understand, you know, who is this child? Now, one of the other foundational pieces is, and it's connected to the who are we recruiting? Who are we recruiting? We're recruiting school-age children. So we start out with pre-K, K, all the way up to an out-of-school youth who happens to be 22 years old, but not more than 22 years old. So school-age children, preschool-age children, 3, 4s, and 5s that are not in a preschool program, and then out-of-school youth up to the age of 22. So those are the individuals that we're interested in identifying, helping, supporting, and allowing them, providing situations where they will graduate from high school. How are we doing this? This is where the partnership with you, our program contacts, and the ESC becomes so instrumental. We use the employment survey distributed through the school districts. We participate in community events. We have gone to a lot of back-to-school fairs. We've talked to lots and lots of vendors that you've had out there. It adds value to their knowledge about who is a migrant child, and it also provides us with information of resources out in the community that we can use to support our children. We've gone to health fairs. We've gone to PTA meetings. We will go to anywhere that it is a legitimate, safe place to go to talk to our parents, to talk to our community members, to talk to our teachers and our staff about the program, because we never know who will be able to help us and who will know who in order to provide us with information that will be helpful and supportive to the child. You have a slide with a link that will show you what the employment survey looks like. Like I said, we're still working on this. Hopefully you'll be able to see the slide. But if not, many of you were sent the employment survey about August, and then we sent it out again in late spring, and then in August. Now, this is where it becomes so important for us to know who is our program contact, and anytime that that program contact changes, to provide us with that information. So we will be sending information out to the appropriate individual, and we are very grateful to those of you that have gotten information and then have given it to the new person, because that is that allows us to keep information flowing appropriately, on behalf of our children. So the slide, if it doesn't get you to the particular employment survey, please don't have lose any sleep over that, because we will be talking about this again during administrative training, and have probably copies of the employment survey so that you can look at them. And like I said, if you have not received an employment survey, just send us an email, and we will be happy to send that to you so that you'll have it for your district. And I believe our last slide has our email addresses, so you can send that too. Now, again, any questions up to this point? We've talked about who is a migrant child. We've talked about who we are recruiting, how we're doing that. If you have other ideas and you want to add to that, again, just shoot us an email, and we will be very happy to entertain your thoughts that will add value to the work. So that employment survey becomes critical. And so what are the responsibilities that you have? You distribute the employment surveys to every returning and new student. And that is done throughout the school year. Not a one-time deal, but throughout the school year, whenever you have a new student. Now, the other bullets that are coming up are going to be very, very critical. And most of you have set this up, but for those of you that are new, you need to set up a system for collecting, reviewing, and storing the surveys. Now, because we've had an ongoing relationship with a lot of different districts, if someone was a program contact and is no longer a program contact, I would spend a little bit of time maybe discussing the system that has been set up so that you can either augment that system or you can simply use it to the benefit of your children. You set up a procedure for forwarding those surveys that have yes to the ESC. Remember, there are just 2 questions on that employment survey. Pretty clear, though I am thinking, given the number of phone calls that I've made this year, which is just wonderful, I'm thinking of making some changes, but I'll talk about that at a later date and have feedback from some of you. So collecting, reviewing, and storing, and then forwarding the yes surveys to us. Now, a lot of you have online enrollment. So please send us the yes responses on a regular basis. And when you underline the word regular, what does that mean? We're talking about every 4 weeks, no more than 6 weeks. So you may want to put between 4 and 6 weeks because you are checking that enrollment, online enrollment, and you're looking at whether or not the families have said yes. We have, with Deanna's gracious work, a new email address. And you have it there on your PowerPoint. You can email that the surveys and the online enrollment information to that particular email address, or you can simply use the way we've done it in the past, which you have sent us the information via an email. You send that information to Esther, or you send that information to me because we're doing the ID&R identification of the students. Or you can use this email address, which we will be checking periodically. Now, if we don't hear from you, either in this address or a direct email to our email addresses, then we will be calling or we will be sending emails asking y'all, just to kind of let us know what's going on. The other thing that is going to be vital is that ensure that campus personnel are trained. If the surveys go back to your school and no one knows what to do with them, a lot of times they end up in the child's, folder, right? CUME folder, thank you. They end up in the CUME folder. That is not where we want those employment surveys to end up. So please ensure that the campus personnel are trained. And I will offer this. If you want me to go out and work with your campus personnel, I will be happy to do that. I'll be happy to work with your secretaries, your administrative assistants, your registrars, whomever is working and picking up the surveys. That way they will feel good, comfortable, secure as to what it is that they're going to do and who they're sending it to. It goes back to setting up a system for collecting, reviewing, and storing the surveys. Ensure enrollment and language testing centers have procedures in place. So it's not just the school, it's anywhere where children and families go to enroll or to take those, a lot of our districts are setting up language testing centers. That's another place to help identify migrant families and to provide them with information that will allow them to self-identify themselves, and then you can give us that information as quickly as you get that. So any questions regarding district responsibilities? Make sense? Now we have The flip side of that is, what is our responsibility? Remember, again, this is a partnership. You will send the employment surveys form to the migrant contact. Pardon me? Oh, right, sorry. We send the employment survey to you. And I've mentioned that before. You know, we do it at the end of the semester, spring semester, and then we do it again at the beginning of the academic school year. That way, we're capturing both sets of periods of time where there may be a lot of change in the district, and we might be able to, give that information to the appropriate individual. Once we get those those employment surveys from you, we review all the surveys. We make pre-screening calls to any and all the surveys that have yes. Most of the surveys that you will send us will have yes. If you simply want to send us a group of surveys and we go through and identify the yes, that'll be fine. But a lot of times you simply just send us the yes surveys. Once we screen that family, once we look at that survey, we will call the family and we're allowed at that point to have a telephone interview with them in order to really, really ask them a set of questions that have been given to us by the Texas Education Agency. And we simply begin to develop a relationship with them, because it is through that particular interview, telephone interview, that we truly identify whether or not the families have understood what they're answering in the employment survey. So if we hear through the conversation that they indeed did agricultural work and that their children indeed went with them, then we will set up an appointment with those families. And we do this all on your behalf because you have joined the shared service agreement. So we do this, again, on your behalf. Sometimes it's quite challenging to get a hold of the families. Sometimes it's not as easy as picking up the telephone and leaving a message and then getting a call back. We're pretty persistent about that. We'll make a couple of phone calls. If that doesn't work, excuse me, we will send a letter home. If that doesn't work, then we'll go knocking on the door, because a yes is something that we take seriously, and we really want to be able to offer the support services as needed to the children. So it's a yes, it's a call, it's a follow-up with a home interview if that is merited. Then we start filling out those certificates of eligibility. Those certificates come back to my office, because it is in that situation that we truly ascertain exactly what they did, when did they do it, how did they do it, etc. We then begin to notify you as our district contact of the results. Yes, that family qualified. No, that family did not qualify. We also notify the family whether they qualified or not. After all of that has been said and done, interviewed, conversation with the family, we have the proper paperwork from an employer if we need that information, then we will send you a copy of the certificate of eligibility. We will also send you a copy to kind of work with the PEAMS coordinator in your district, because that PEAMS coordinator will need to put those children on the system so that your district will have the proper information that is needed to identify the children. Make sense? I'm going to turn over the mic to Deanna so she can go on and talk about identified migrant students' district responsibilities. So we have who we recruited, how we recruited, what we use for recruitment. Okay?
So now we're looking at the identified migrant students. And I know you can't click the link, and neither can I. For some reason, there's a limitation when we're actually in the Zoom presentation. But those of you that have migrant students have already received an email with a link to your own district's NGS data Google Sheet. And it contains this, it's pre-filled with the students' names, their USID number, their birth date, their grade level from last school year, and then you'll see where you're going to complete the information for this school year. If the students were migrant last school year, we left the information, we left some information there, such as the eye exams. We might have left some SPED information on there, but check anything that's already pre-filled to make sure that it's still current. Also in the instructions, if these are returning students, make sure that when you do change an item that you highlight it in yellow, and that will assist our NGS data person to go in and quickly see what she needs to change in our NGS database. We've shortened the document. Last year was a trial error with a trial, not total error, but we tried to make the document or the Google Sheet all-encompassing, but that was a bit cumbersome. So we went ahead and we left the basic information on for you to complete. But as far as grades and any of the STAR assessments from the previous spring, those items, the medical alerts, any vision screenings, all of those items that you're just going to take and just scan. And we did that because normally when you get something from the nurse, it's got everything on it. If you get the STAR information, that's going to be one page that you can just, or maybe a couple pages that you can just scan back to. And we have a new email address, ngs.migrant@region10.org. And that's where we're going to request that you send all of those STAR scores, immunization records, straight into that email. So there have been some changes from the last year's data Google Sheet. You'll see once you get yours or after this Zoom presentation, and you can go into the PowerPoint, go into this NGS sample Google Sheet that I came up with, but you'll see that you'll have a tab for 2018-19, which is the current school year. You'll see a tab that contains the 17-18 record still there for you. So if you need to reference it for any reason, it's still there. And I believe it does have another tab for some information that's due in October. So anything that we need to just check that Google Sheet. Every now and then you'll get an email with a request to update it, and that's usually from Esther because you've gotten a new student. And so she'll go ahead and add the new students to your sheet, and then she'll send that link to you again for you to update any information on a new student that you have. And here on that second bullet, yes, we did send the NGS Google Sheets in August. I know when I was out in the field, I would always say, well, they had that information last year. Why do they need it again? Well, the reason is that on NGS database, we are required to withdraw the students at the end of, let's say at the end of 2017, 2018, we had to withdraw them. And then once they re-enroll in your school, we re-enroll them on the NGS database. And all of this is tied to funding and to EA compliance. If you have any questions, go ahead and send them to my chat, and I'll look over them here in a second. The other thing that that's going to happen is that we're going to send the unique student count and priority for service reports to the district contact. We send them monthly, and please review those carefully. Make sure that you recognize all those students. If you see anyone that's new or different, notice that you will need to contact your campus principal, counselor, and nurse and let them know that there's an identified migrant student on their campus. Also let them know that we're going to be contacting them, or that you'll be contacting them depending on how your district is set up, so that they know that we're going to be requesting information. I know the nurses sometimes are reluctant to release those immunization records, but if you will go ahead and let them know at the beginning, once you know that the students are identified, that someone from the Migrant Program or you will be requesting immunization records, STAR information, all of that information that's listed on the NGS data Google Sheet. And then also, and Mary mentioned it, you're going to make sure you update the PEMS code for any of those identified migrant students that are on that unique student count report. Update the code at the beginning of each school year. And what I would do is run that PEMS migrant report and reconcile it with the NGS unique student count report. Make sure that the students that are on the unique student count have that PEMS code for migrant turned on. The other thing that, the other main responsibility for the district is to monitor the student progress. And that's where I work with you to get this done. But as far as the responsibilities for the district is that you will provide the instructional services, maintain documentation of progress and services provided, and then keep Region 10 informed of struggling students, whether it's academic or their attendance, and even emotional issues. Because the students do tend to move around a lot. They go from some of their enrollment, if you look at their T-Rex records and you look at the enrollment, it's scary as far as how many times the kids move in and out of a particular school, or even within a school district, or within other, from state to state or different districts. So always keep us informed if you hear of anything. Stay in touch with the teachers so that if that student is struggling, we can assist. And a lot of times that means a home visit to talk to the parents about what's going on at school. We'll make home visits to talk about attendance issues, and then work with the schools to see if we can't resolve some emotional issues. All right, as far as what Region 10 is going to do, we send those NGS reports to the district each month, that unique student count and the priority for service report. So it's our job to get that to you each month. If you have students, now if you don't have students, you will not receive one. If you're not sure or you want to verify, please just shoot us an email and ask, do I have any students? And that way you can be assured that whether you have some or not. But more than likely, once you have a student, you would have already heard from us several times. Here it is. Our responsibility is to monitor the student progress. We perform district visits in the fall, and that's mainly me. So I'll be contacting you very soon to set up those district visits. And then I'll do follow-ups on that student progress as needed. Mostly I try to come back to you in the spring, but if a student is doing really well, I most likely will not need to follow up with them. If he's got a good 2 or 3 years where he's just passed all his exams and is doing really well, more than likely I will not follow up, but I will follow up with those students who have not passed a STAR in the past or struggling, have attendance issues and that type of thing. We serve out-of-school youth. So these are the students that are not in school, and our recruiter, Lydia Espinoza, she goes out and tries to get these kiddos back into school, whether she assists them with getting their high school equivalency. She will contact various community colleges to see if there's any programs. Sometimes they just want to learn English, so she provides laptops with a Rosetta Stone on them to assist them to learn English. So she pretty much handles that. However, she will every now and then contact you to see if you have any resources, because we always need to make sure that we utilize the district resources before we tap into the migrant funds. One of the big things that we do is we monitor and meet the family needs. We coordinate with the districts and community service providers. We obtain and deliver items such as clothing, school supplies, and loan or laptops. On the migrant contact information Google form that was sent out to you, we asked that question as to what types of resources that you have in your district or your community, so that we can expedite the process from the point in time that the parent requests either supplies or clothing. We can go in and look at that Google form, look at your response, so we already know, okay, NS already has a community closet, so they'll be able to provide clothing. We'll still go back and check with you to make sure that there's the correct sizes for the child. And then if there are no other district or community resources available, we will go ahead and purchase the clothing or whatever item using the migrant funds, which are technically your funds that we're holding. We also maintain files. We update the NGS database with all the services that are provided. So we keep track of that. That's a compliance piece that TEA requests. And here again, we complete the compliance reports as requested by TEA. They've added some new guidelines again this year, and we won't be covering them in this session, but we will during the identification recruitment session for administrators next week. The local needs assessment you will be able to access after you log out of the Zoom. If you want to look at the full report, it is there available for you. The local needs assessment results that are going to drive the 2018-2019 services. So we look back at last year and see how the students performed, and then we use that to go forward. So we're doing really well and have been for the last 3 years as far as the first grade retention rate. We are still below the state goal, which is good. The graduation rate is higher than the state goal, so that is also very good. So we try to, that's one thing we try to stay on top of, the students that are graduating or at least in high school, to make sure they're on track. So I do a lot of visits to counselors, talk to the students themselves to make sure that if they are behind in the credits, that they are in some type of program, and then make the home visit to make sure that the parent is supporting those kiddos that need to be in credit recovery. The area for improvement, again, which is not a surprise, is middle school. The passing rates were pretty low. The 7th grade was the lowest with a 60% passing rate. There was some issues with some missing data. We had to work from raw data, but that was a pretty solid number. So again, if you have a migrant student and they are in those critical grades, 6th, 7th, and 8th, and even start looking at them in 5th to make sure that they're getting all the support they need so that we can improve with our middle school students. So all of the needs that we look back and then we go forward, and the needs are reflected in the district improvement plan or the priority for service action plan. We base the grant application on the needs. We again always look back to see what was needed the prior year to go forward and see how we need to amend or change the application if we need to. And then, as usual, every year we look at the data to evaluate whether or not the services are effective in closing the achievement gaps. And that is going to be even more important this year with the new TEA guidelines. And here again, you can access the grant application if you would like to look at it in its entirety. Once the Zoom presentation is over, you can go back into your Google Slides and access it.
If we can go back just a moment to the application, wanted to give you some thoughts as you're reviewing that application once the Zoom is over and you can access the link. You're going to be, when you're looking at the application, you're only going to be looking part of the application, but it's divided into different parts. And you'll see why Deanna said that there's a link between the LNA and the application. itself. So first, in part 1, you're going to be looking at consultation. Part 2, you're going to be looking at required program activities. That has to do a lot with the ID&R process of how we go about providing, identifying the students. You will see a lot, you will see reasons why you joined the SSA. But one of the things I want to point out in particular as you look at this application is the district procedures. Developing procedures that will help with the partial and full credit accrual, as Deanna was talking about. Most districts have procedures and have written down in their policies how they're going to support students that are going to need that extra level of support and opportunities in order for them to finish school. You'll see Priority for Service Action Plan, Part 3, which when I sent out the information about Priority for Service, I went ahead and used the wording in the application so that you will see why we are being asked, or that why we are asking you to put the PFS action plan in the district improvement plan. Then we talked about planned supplemental activities. This is where we have some choices as to what we're going to do and how we're going to do it. And that's divided by different grade levels. Your high school, your middle school, your elementary grades, your summer programs, and then your early childhood piece. And then the last part, which we'll talk a little bit about when we get to another slide, is support services. So the application is all encompassing. It really thinks about almost everything that is needed to be looked at in order so that we can, provide support to the child, from identifying the child to supporting the child on the campus. So again, when you look at that application, you will see the sense and why it was created and why it was put together the way it was, or the way it is. Now, in this particular slide, we'll kind of touch base on this very quickly. We will always spend time talking about funding and how we use our funds. Migrant needs that cannot be met by other funds. So our migrant child is a child, and that child has all the needs and the desires and of all the other children. So whatever is given to all the other children is also given to this migrant child. If there's a need that is specific to migrant, and we cannot find any other way to support that need or to address that need, then, as I discussed yesterday with 2 program contacts, then we begin to look at how do we use the migrant funds to help and support that. But as you can see in the triangle, the bottom part of that triangle, services offered by other programs. Well, where does that money come from? Foundation, state comp, bilingual ESL. Remember that the children are to be in those free lunch programs immediately, homeless, Title I Part A, and any other funding that you might have access to. If it's good enough for everybody, it's good enough for them. In your next slide, it talks about, or deals with what I just referenced, but the second little bullet there talks about serving priority for service students first. So if you have $100 and you have 3 priority for service children and you have 1 just quote regular migrant child, we're to serve the priority for service child first. And just like any other federal program, we're looking at supplementing, not supplanting. And those 2 words took me a while to kind of understand, but I think I have a handle on that. And documentation is required to show how the funding is, how MEP funded services are indeed supplemental, which is why we spend so much time looking at resources in the community or in the district or anywhere where we can find resources that can be helpful to the child. And no matter what the resource, we need to have documentation because, again, it is something that we need to keep up with. We're going to be talking about a lot more about the 8 statewide needs and the 7 areas of concern. These are umbrella pieces that the program, particularly the academic program, falls into those particular statewide needs and 7 areas of concern. So again, it's just something to kind of put in the back of your head as we begin to develop and to get reacquainted with the information that either we received last year for validation or information that we're going to receive this year that is new. Now, when we talk about services provided based on need, what are we talking about? Remember, as you are looking at your application, the last part of that application, as I just referenced, deals with support services. And the application will ask you whether we're going to use MEP funding or other funding. We usually check both because other funds also are very much in need and in use in trying to meet the needs of these children. And the examples are clothing, which I think you have done a yeoman's job this year with working with the students. We've had maybe 10, 15 school districts that we've already talked to. We've called. We have shared the fact that students have this particular need, the school supplies. All of that have quickly been taken care of, and I'm talking like within a week, because if you need clothing and you need shoes and you need school supplies and school's open, school is starting, and school started at a variety of different places at different times this year. Some of you were open like the first week in August all the way down to the week before Labor Day weekend. I mean, I'm talking about going into storerooms that were not air conditioning, looking for school supplies and trying to figure out exactly, what could be done with the students. So a lot of extra work and a lot of great need and desire and support on your part. We will also discuss extracurricular fees and uniforms. But again, a lot of your school districts have children of poverty, and you already have programs and procedures in place that will help with the band fees or the cheerleading fees or whatever it is that's out there because you're already sensitive to those particular needs. Vision and dental. We're working with one particular family dealing with the dental, but usually the nurse will take care of vision and in many cases dental. And by that I mean that exams, the regular school exams will show that whether or not they need glasses, and then many times our nurses, hardworking as they are, already know the resources that are out in the community that will allow them to support these children and get the glasses or the dental work that they might need. We also have tender-hearted, wonderful individuals out in the community that will help and support and address the needs that these children have. In some cases, not many cases, but in some cases, there's also home-based tutoring. Like Deanna briefly mentioned when she's talking about instructional needs and the conferences that she will hold with you. There are many, many different resources that are already in your school, and many of you start tutorials like after Labor Day. Some of you in the middle of September, early October, you already have children, already identified students, and you already have your after-school tutorials or your Saturday morning tutorials. So there's a lot going on the campus all over Region 10, but just in case you have a child that simply just needs that extra touch, then you can work with Deanna or myself, but because she works mainly with our student needs, would be something that we can work with and provide that support. Other services are advocacy. We all advocate, including you, for these children. We all know that they have particular needs, and so if it's an academic need, if it's an emotional need, if it's a physical need, then we advocate. We take time out of our day to make sure that the children have what they need. So these are services that we kind of pinpoint and we spend a lot of time on because they seem to be foundational. If these kinds of services are not provided, then many of our children will not attend camp, will not go to school, or will be so shy when they actually go to school that they will not be as productive as they should be and can be.
One of the other services that we provide is that we have a home-based early childhood program. It is literacy-based. We start looking for these children when they turn 3 years old. The recruiters normally will call the family and ask if the child is in any type of early childhood program. And then we will usually check your, going back to the migrant contact information Google form that you completed. I believe we do ask if there was an early childhood program there in your district. So we'll check that. Sometimes the parents will say, well, I wanted to get them in Head Start, but there's a waiting list. So as long as the child is not in another preschool opportunity, or they've got an opportunity but they can't get in because they're on a waiting list, then we will go ahead and offer that home-based service. It is one-on-one, and the program is early literacy. It is designed to teach the parent how to teach their child, giving them basic literacy skills. The other program that we have is the Project SMART Making Mathematics Meaningful Summer Program. It is offered to grades K through 8. This year, and I believe last year, is when we started offering it to the Priority for Service students primarily due to funding. And so we always contact those families first to see if they are not going out to work, or see if we cannot get this program to the students. It is research-based. Everything is provided by TEA. The curriculum is all set up. It's almost a scripted program. It is one-on-one, hands-on activities. It covers the major math teaks, and it does include reading and STEM components. We have had very positive feedback from families, students, and educators have talked to us and let us know that they had noticed a difference in the students' academic progress based on the fact that they had gotten this program in the summer. And it's usually comprised of 9 lessons. It has a pre-test and a post-test. We do have to report all of this information back to TEA, and they track the effectiveness of the program. This past summer, we served 12 students. And you'll see there the 2 first graders and 2 third graders, and the 5th and 6th and 8th were the ones we covered. And you can see there the districts that received, where the students received those services. The other service that we provide is the Parent Advisory Council meeting, and it includes the Migrant Education Student Association, which is MESA. So what we do in these meetings, and we have one coming up September 22nd, this coming Saturday, we talk about the benefits of the program to make sure that the families are informed of all the services that we offer. We do needs assessment surveys to see what the general needs of the parents and students are. We have cover our bylaws, and we select officers. This year, because of the new TEA guidelines, we are required to make sure that parents receive reading and math resources. So we've decided to go ahead and incorporate that into the PAC meeting. We, in the past, have done those things, but in this case, going forward, it's going to be more deliberate, I guess, and to make sure that we satisfy those compliance issues with TEA. And then we generally hold them in the fall and the spring. So like I said, we're having one coming up here September 22nd. We'll have one in December. Once, if we receive the close-up grant again to send students to Close Up Washington, D.C. and Close Up Austin. I'll incorporate those orientations into another PAC meeting as well. And the other thing here too is that we have, or making, connecting with some community services such as health services and various health programs, which have been very helpful to our families. And back to Mary. Oh, sure. All right, we're going to take a 5-minute break and then we will come back.
All right. Hopefully everybody was able to stretch their legs and get going. Again, the priority for service, you've heard us talk and make reference to priority for service. And because this is a foundational meeting in terms of definitions and who is who and how we deal with our students, the priority for service child is the migrant child who has made a qualifying move within a previous 1-year period. Now, you do not have a link to this, but you were sent, I would say, a couple of weeks ago, information about the Priority for Service Action Plan. You were actually sent the plan, and it was requested from y'all to send us back the last page with your signature on it, because that's a TEA mandate, and we would like to have that sheet signed by you. Keep a copy for yourself in your records, and then send us a copy, send me a copy of it, or Esther, so that we can keep a copy here at the ESC. So let's go back. So what's the criteria? And again, the criteria is the very first sheet on the information that we sent to you regarding the PFS plan. And that's the plan that needs to go in the district improvement plan. So grades 3 through 12 who made a qualifying move within the last previous year. Big and failed one or more of the state assessments, or were granted a tax LEP postponement. They were absent for whatever reason. They were not tested, or they weren't enrolled in a Texas school during the state assessment. So if they came from Oklahoma, Kansas, New York, Washington, it doesn't matter. They were not enrolled during the state assessment, therefore they didn't take it. So had they made a qualifying move within the previous year, and they failed the state assessments, were granted a postponement, they were absent, or they were not tested. Now that K3, that 3rd grade year, is kind of like a transitional year, but K3, again, who made a qualifying move within the previous 1-year period. And here, most of our children, particularly K2, are not tested. So, and have been designated LEP in the student designation section of the new generation system, which again is the reason why we request information on the NGS sheet that would identify whether the children are receiving bilingual support, because that is one of the criteria for the priority for service. So the sooner we have that information, the sooner we put into the system will then generate who those priority for service children are. Or for students K2, if they've been retained or they're overage for their current grade level. So the criteria, the part that has moved within a previous 1-year period is the same for 312 and K3. What is different is the exams, because the K2 particular do not take those state exams. And again, we will be talking a lot about this as we go into the administrative training session and throughout the school year. It has in the slide a PFS implementation process, which has been tweaked by the state. For those of you that kind of experienced that last year and you worked with Deanna in such a diligent manner, you will see that there was some changes that should facilitate getting the information to the ESC. And this is really information that is allowing and supporting a PFS child to be successful. So you'll get more of the details on that next week. The PFS action plan was already completed and sent to y'all to put in your district improvement plan. What you did not get was the PFS migrant plan of action, because we're still working on that migrant plan of action part. And we'll do some really hands-on kinds of things next week when we come together that should be helpful in addressing some of the sections of that migrant plan of action. But you do have that PFS action plan to place into your district improvement plan. Now, the priority for service action plan is divided into different sections. The first section deals with goals and objectives. The goal, obviously, is to have the child advance academically and be able to graduate within the 4 years of entering high school. We're going to be monitoring students' grades. We're going to be monitoring students' success on the state assessments. We're going to make sure that their progress and the identification of being priority for service has been properly communicated to the people that need to have that information: their teachers, their counselors, their parents, administrators. And then we're going to be looking at what are the services and the resources that have been put into place on the campus or in coordination with Region 10 in order to see, to support that particular child. So there are required strategies. Once the child has been identified for priority for service, and you saw that immediately that first page identifies what a priority for service child is, it tells you the difference between a K-3 and a 3 through 12. It talks about monitoring the progress of the children. And the very first thing we do is we run those NGS priority for service report. Again, Deanna referenced that, and that is an ESC responsibility to you. We do that throughout the academic year, and I can monitor that, make sure that that's happened through the PFS tracking report that's available to us through the new generation system. We developed the PFS action plan, got some feedback from a couple of the program contacts. And you'll note that in that particular plan that was sent to you, it says migrant funds must be targeted to serve PFS students first and foremost before serving migrant students who do not fall into this category. So we monitor their progress. Deanna will be talking a lot about this when she makes the appointments and she visits with you. Not all of you have PFS students, so not all of you will have that conversation, but it could happen at any time when a family moves in, so we'd like for everyone to have at least a cursory understanding of the process so that when you get that information, you at least know to call us. You communicate the progress and determine the needs of the children. We do this in coordination with you. It cannot be done in isolation either by you or by us. Here it has to be a coordinated effort with campus principals understanding what is going on in support of these children. The parents need to know. Sometimes the parents don't have an understanding of what it is to be PFS, what kind of services and support systems, and how they, the first teachers of their students, how they become critical in the process of helping students move out of this particular status. Deanna will be doing that through the PAC meetings. Placing students into particular programs are critical. And again, that conversation with Deanna is critical. Where and how are we helping these children, and what kind of programs are they in? Priority access to instructional services. And here, if you read the PFS plan, what type of assistance service is the LEA ESC providing the PFS students in those grade configuration? And how is this service making a difference with these children? And to make sure that the service matches the gap that the child has. A reminder that the 4th page of the PFS action plan needs to be signed and sent to me at the ESC so we can have it on file. Any questions? It's a lot of information in a short period of time.
Miriam, just remind them that TEA every now and then will request that document.
Yes, Deanna was. I don't know if you guys heard her, but they the Texas Education Agency will at times, and sometimes you won't even know. I mean, we'll let you know because we're partners. But they will ask for this information. And if it's already here and it's already on file, which is, what they're believing, then we should be able, if they called us at 9 o'clock in the morning and they wanted Richardson's, Ennis, Dallas, Collinsville, and anybody else, Irving, PFS signature page, I should be able to go over and get that page, scan it, and send it to them. And that shouldn't take more than an hour or so. If I don't have it, then at that point I have to call you and get the information into our hands so we can send it together with everyone else's. So that's just important information for you to know. It's just, again, better to be informed and to have the information where it's supposed to be than to try to get it at the last moment. Okay. Again, any questions regarding this? We will be spending more time with this at the administrators training next week and throughout the academic year. The identification and recruitment session for administrators is 9:25. And I believe it's going to be in the Abrams building because we're not having any sessions in the Spring Valley. It'll be here in the Lone Star room, and it'll begin at 9 o'clock. Please bring your laptops with you. Information will be sent to y'all. Handouts will be sent, or we will have them here for you. Be prepared to think through a lot of the information that will be shared with you, hopefully prior to the meeting. We do have an NGS M6 data position. You may want to go into the Region 10 Human Services website and look at that particular position. We have the Migrant Educators Texas Conference. Our state conference is going to be November 7th through the 9th this year. And usually those conferences are held in South Texas, mainly because of the cost. It's a lot less expensive to run a convention in South Texas than it is, for example, to come to a Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Some questions that popped up.
Okay.
that I need to-
We have the last sheet, and we have some questions that we need to respond to. But here, the last sheet has all the different individuals that are currently part of the Migrant Education Program and that provide support and services. And think of us, as I have shared with many of you, we're simply down the hall from y'all. A conversation or a phone call can be had. I mean, a conversation via telephone call can be had very quickly, and questions can be answered so that again, to maintain your level of comfort so that we can all work on this together.
Okay, we had some comments and questions, and there was one about how the parents find out about the PAC meeting. So what we do is we'll send a flyer out, and then we will actually call every one of the families to remind them of the meeting. So I think the first year I came, we had, our lowest count was one family, one parent, one child. And then we've had, I don't know, 75. It's gone up to 75. So we really try our best to get our families to the meetings, and a lot of times they will tell us of needs, in person rather than, than call us. So, and it's a really good opportunity for us to build those relationships with the families. There was another question regarding whether or not you can just send us, let's say you get an employment survey and it has a yes on it. The question was whether or not you have to send that employment survey, or can you just send the contact information. Normally we'd like the employment survey. However, if you want to send that contact information, that's fine. Just be sure to include the type of work that the family did, and any other comments that might be on that sheet. Also, before you send them to us, make sure that there is a phone number there. Every now and then we get some without a phone number, but that's minor. Let's see. Oh yes, there was a question about that wanted to clarify whether or not those employment surveys should go in the CUME folder, the students' CUME folder, and that is a no. Do not put the employment surveys in the students' CUME folder. Generally, and here again, this is why you as district contacts need to establish a process on how you're going to distribute and collect them, and then where they're going to be stored. Every district is different. Some smaller districts, sometimes they'll have everything sent to the migrant contact, and they go through them themselves. At the end of the school year, all of the no's, remember that the yeses need to come to us, but then all of the no's can be destroyed at the end of the school year. I mean, follow your district policy. That always precedes what we tell you. But as a general rule, I would keep them until, through the summer month, and then destroy them before the next school year starts. It does have confidential information on there, so make sure they are not just thrown in the trash, that they are shredded. And that's what we do with ours as well. Anything that we get that has a no. But like I said, as a general rule, you can keep them you should keep them, because if TEA were to call you, if they were to say, well, we want a sample of what you've collected throughout the year, that way you will have it. We haven't seen that yet, but that doesn't mean that they can't ask.
They always
So,
make a point of saying that.
yes, and anytime they have trainings, they always mention that you should keep those for a certain amount. Like I said, about a year, and I would keep them through the summer months, because TEA doesn't close up during the summer. They usually will send out some type of compliance, or if they have anything, they might send it out in the summer. Let's see. And just a reminder, we apologize that you weren't able to access, we weren't able to access the links either to get to those other documents. But once you sign off of the Zoom recording and go back into the link that I sent, you will be able to access those resources, like the local needs assessment and yes, the grant application. So let's see if there are any other questions. If we don't have anything else, then thank you so much for your time. As always, like Miriam said, just give us, for me, it's email, because I'm out a lot. I'm going to as soon as I get all this appointments set up. My cell phone is on my signature line, so feel free to text me, call me if you ever have any issues with families or you need to talk to me. So anyway, thank you so much for your time. Oops. Oh. Thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we will see you next week. Thank you.